Hi, everyone. It works. So we are Vincent and Felix, coming from Paris. We arrived this morning through the Eurostar, and we are here to talk about ClimateSeed and how collaboration and why we think collaboration is the key to unlock meaningful climate action. According to a survey from the consultancy firm Accenture, we have a very good news. One third of the largest, biggest companies in the world have set SBT targets. Unfortunately, 93% of them now need to set up reliable action plans, and that's the difficult part. So actually, companies have understood that it's time to set targets and reduce the carbon emission, but they face the critical challenge to set those action plans. And we think at ClimateSeed that collaboration with the suppliers, with project developers, with the stakeholders of the company is the key to unlock this climate action. Before explaining why we think collaboration is the key, let's take a step back and understand the problem we all face today.
Yeah, thanks, Vincent. I will try. I was instructed to speak out loud so you can hear me well. I hope that's the case. Um, we like to use this analogy if we talk about climate change because sometimes the challenge that we face can be quite overwhelming, and the whole crowd here is assembled to talk about net zero, innovation zero, and how to get there. But for me personally, sometimes it's overwhelming, all the bad news about climate change and how can we actually do something, that it helps to break it down to the essential levers that we have to consider if we talk about climate action as individuals or as businesses or as governments. So we really like to frame climate change as a bathtub problem. So you might not know, but our atmosphere works like a gigantic bathtub where we have an inflow of emissions that we are all causing while we're here, and an outflow of emissions. So it's sort of an excess drain. These are the carbon sinks that exist. So for largely speaking, one third oceans, one third land uptake, and the soil uptake as well. So we have the forest and we have soil uptake. And the problem that we have is that each year, roughly 59% of the emissions stay in the atmosphere instead of being sucked out of the atmosphere and be sequestered and placed safely into carbon sinks. So the big challenge we face is that we emit more than Earth can capture, basically. And if we move to the next slide, we will see that the levers we have, though, are just we can close the tap or reduce the inflow of carbon emissions. This is why we have to drastically reduce carbon emissions. And many do just not, by now start how massive this challenge is and how difficult it is actually to reduce carbon emissions. We will get to that in a sec. And we have to improve the capacity of carbon sinks. So the capacity to sequester CO2 from the atmosphere and actually create this balance that is called net zero. And that is the challenge that businesses, individuals face. So when we go to the next slide, we can ask ourselves, what is the fair share that I have to do? For example, Vincent, I came today with the Eurostar here, pretty green travels, but does this solve the problem?
Unfortunately, very expensive travels as well. But you did great, Felix. We took the Eurostar this morning coming from Paris, and it was a great action. And every small action that we do is necessary and good for climate. Unfortunately, what survey states today is that small change in habits won't be sufficient to tackle the net zero challenge. What we see today in surveys that 60% of the necessary 80% decrease will only be possible through collective action with the state and companies. Companies need to decarbonize their Scope 3 emission to propose products to their clients, low carbon products to their clients, and the states need to finance, for example, the renovation of households to be able to actually lower the individual carbon footprint of individuals. The objective for individuals is to get from 11 tons of CO2 on average to 2 tons of CO2. This is an 80% decrease of our individual carbon footprint. This is huge. This is a very big challenge, and this will require collaboration. Again, 60% of the necessary 80% decrease will only be possible with the help of companies and with the help of the state. So understanding this need for collaboration, we built solution at ClimateSeed to help companies decarbonize. Collaboration to help businesses decarbonize their value chain, calculated their scope 3 emission, and working with suppliers to decarbonize within the whole value chain, and also collaboration with project developers to help companies and businesses contribute to projects that either avoids or capture CO2 emission. Felix is going to explain our offer on decarbonization.
So yeah, let's take a look on collaboration and see how our solution is designed to address what we now preach here, that we should be collaborative in our approach. Because for a long time, approach or business approaches to climate action were focused on a term that is called climate neutral company, right? Or climate neutral product. So the idea was to measure, reduce, and then offset the remaining emissions, and then you're done. You get a label and you can show it to the consumer. Right now, especially in the UK, but also in Germany and in France, companies are sued for this behavior. And actually, it also brings a bigger problem of not being collective focused or collectively focused or collaborative in their approach, but they're really hyper-focused on their own, often only scope 1 and 2 emissions, and try to work on that. Instead, what we advocate is that you take, of course, into account the scope 3. This becomes now more and more mandatory by law and regulation. So you start focusing on your supply chain, up and downstream. You need to meet your partners, your friends, your buyers, and your investors, and talk to them how you can collectively start to decarbonize. And that's why we built a platform based on the years-long experience of carbon accountants that is really focusing on making collaboration possible in data collection, but then also in addressing the set targets, so building transitions plans together with everyone at your company. And so the aim is to present a one-stop shop collaborative platform for climate action. And here the idea is that you can really address at each step, you can implicate, you can communicate, and you can first and foremost tackle your scope 3, because there you need to work with your suppliers. So this is on the decarbonization side of things. So for your own value chain, we move you from a rather static exercise that is mandatory, you do it each year, you get a photograph of something, to a more dynamic and actionable vision of your emissions, where you already implied everyone in your value chain to work together with you, so you can work along the year to reduce emissions. You gain time, and by automation, bringing in the calculation engine of the platform to your business brings the expertise and technical expertise of carbon accounting. But behind that, we also quality drill the process with our consulting team, so they validate the final report. So you're not alone with the software. And from vague goals and often ambitious goals, we move to science-based targets, and then, as Vincent said, the transition plan, so we can build action plans for a company to reach that. And as I already said, it's now connected with the value chain. Instead of hyper-focusing on your own company, on becoming carbon neutral, you focus on your value chain, and this is really where the challenge today lies. So all in all, right, so this approach is all to have a more holistic view on climate action and really embrace that you can say it's work in progress and we have to do it together. This will be hugely beneficial for everyone that is alone in a sustainability team and trying to engage the company, the stakeholders, everyone for themselves, trying to get carbon neutral or whatsoever. Instead, we can really engage everyone to work together.
The other part of our solution when it comes to collaboration is related to climate contribution. So at ClimateSeed, we built our climate contribution offer on 3 main pillars. The first one is that we collaborate with project developers. So we bring full transparency for companies that wants to contribute to projects that either avoids or capture CO2 emission. How we do that? It's simple. The project carriers, they set their own pricing on our platform. 100% of the price goes back to them. Our fee, which is a selection process fee, is transparent for the contributors. and we avoid secondary market. So any company that wants to contribute to a project with us, they cannot resell the carbon credits to a third party. They need to use the carbon credits for their own offsetting purposes. We also have a selection process. So with all the projects we work with, we select those projects with a 3-step verification process to assess environmental and reputational risks. For example, the baseline scenarios of the projects, the additionality of the projects, and the permanence of the projects. That's the 3 main things we focus on. Finally, we work with the companies to communicate the right way. And so here we go from offsetting claims to climate contribution claims. We think that it's not very accurate to say for a company that the company can be carbon neutral, because carbon neutrality is the equilibrium between what Earth can capture and what we collectively emit. Companies do not have or do not own forest or mangroves or anything that can capture CO2. A company is always emitting CO2 because a company has a economic activity. So a company can contribute to global carbon neutrality through a financing of projects that either avoid or capture CO2 emission. That's why we want to go from the offsetting approach to the contribution approach and avoiding the subtraction between what we calculated in the carbon footprint with the carbon credits that the company can buy. Last but not least, we wanted to give you a few takeaways for this session before moving to the questions.
Just saying C not only stands for climate change, ClimateSeed, but also for change. So we wanted to transform this message and say to you that even if you're just getting started, be ambitious, work together with everyone of your stakeholders, value the complexity that is behind that. So we have the opinion that climate journeys are work in progress, are complex, and need some time, and also need experts to delve into that. So that's, for example, one reason why we haven't built an all-in-one ESG solution, but we're really focusing on carbon accounting and on beyond value chain mitigation. And last but not least, we want to say, better start late than never, because we are meeting a lot of companies who just are still hesitant to get started because they feel they are a bit late to the party, or they haven't set science-based targets yet or whatsoever, but they are not alone, and it's very important to get started at some point, and we're ready to help you with that.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we are booth C54, but we can take some questions now.
We have a couple of minutes. Round of applause.
Right.
Anyone? Questions?
Here.
Oh, sorry. Just behind my sideline.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Great product. When you say about collaboration, I'm assuming you're talking about collaborations between all the players in the value chain. So in that case, who's your primary customer? Who pays for it? Or is it all the stakeholders will come together to buy your product?
So it's the company that wants to calculate its scope 1, 2, and 3 that pays. And the price of the license, for example, when the company accesses the license, is also depending on the number of accesses that we give the company to distribute to the stakeholders of the company, either internal stakeholders or external stakeholders.
Time for one more question.
So in terms of the data that underlines your carbon emissions, your carbon accounting, how have you gone about collecting that to create like a comprehensive overview for the very varied and wide customer base that you guys have?
Yeah, so we rely on a methodology which is the GHG protocol that actually works for any sector and any company. Our consultants are trained to actually use this methodology, and all the questionnaires that we have built, we have, for example, a commuting questionnaire, we have a supplier questionnaire, purchase questionnaire. They cover all scope 1, 2, and 3. Of course, we are aware for large companies that they have a lot of suppliers and that we cannot give access to all the suppliers. So we built an artificial intelligence that will be able to categorize all the lines for their spendings and try to find the physical data, physical emission factor to actually convert what we found in the spendings into like CO2 equivalent measures.
Great, thank you. And very, very quick question from me. Are you guys raising at the moment?
No, because we've been acquired directly by AXA IM, so the
Congratulations.
insurance that owns actually 91% of the company shares.
Great.
So we are not actually fundraising at the time.
But maybe we can add at this point that we're always looking for partnerships, especially in the UK. So come to talk to us if you're interested in a topic or if you have any questions. We are really happy to share our knowledge and get you all on board. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Vincent, Felix.